En capítulo 5 vamos a aprender sobre el presente perfecto, el pluscuamperfecto, los pronombres directos e indirectos, usando los pronombres directos e indirectos juntos y verbos como gustar. Empezaremos con el presente perfecto. So we'll start with the present perfect. And as you can see right here, the present perfect is used to describe completed actions that still have a connection to the present. So basically, it's a past tense, meaning something you've done in the past, but the time period has not ended yet. So right here, usage, esta semana, this week, that's a good temporal marker because this week is not over yet. Something like today, hoy, would be a good temporal marker because today is not over with. This month, este mes. Recently, recientemente, anything like that would trigger this tense because those time periods are not over with. And then it says completed actions where results influence the present. So the office has ordered, and then has planned. So anything where you hear have or has plus ed is this tense. So like I have gone to the store 2 times this week. We have seen a movie recently. Anything like that, have or has plus ed in English would be this tense. And the construction is very, very easy. It is a conjugation of haber plus the participle. So the conjugations of haber are as, a, hemos, habéis, or on. And a past participle is basically for a are verbs, you're going to add them in auto. And for er, I are verbs, you're going to add them in edo. So if you look right here, it shows you again the past participle for a are verbs, it's going to be auto. Er and I are verbs, it's going to be edo. They never match. It's always auto or edo with conjugation of haber. The only thing you have to do right here, this is an exception, is with edo, if there is a vowel before the edo, you put an accent on the I. So for example, leído, this E is obviously a vowel before the I, so you put an accent on the I. So verbs that follow that would be leer, creer, oír, caer, traer, anything like that. And then you have, these are your irregular participles. If you had me in the past, you know the song, abierto, dicho, hecho, puesto, escrito, visto, vuelto, cubierto, roto, resuelto, no he muerto por los perfectos. So those are some of the common irregulars. These are some more irregulars. And so they don't take the auto or edo, they just go to those complete irregular participles. So that is the present perfect, very easy tense. And the pluscuamperfecto is very, very similar to the present perfect, as in you'll use a conjugation of haber. You can see right here, you'll use a conjugation of haber plus the participle again, but we change the conjugations of haber. So basically, the pluscuamperfecto is just the past perfect. And this is what's important right here. It's used to describe actions that took place before a certain time in the past. So you'll use this a lot when you're narrating in the preterite and the imperfect. Yesterday, I went to the store, and then I went shopping. So you can rearrange that sentence by saying, like, when I went shopping, I had already gone to the store, because going to the store took place before going shopping, but that's not necessarily the order in which you narrated it. So anytime you would say had done something, that would be the pluscuamperfecto. So right here, an action that takes place before a certain time in the past. And if you've had me before, you've seen something like this where I'll draw a line and here's the action, and then you're narrating in the past. The action before, so this action would be the action in the pluscuamperfecto, and then usually the second action is in the preterite. So this would be like, I went shopping, but before that I had gone to the grocery store. So something like that. Let's see. All right, so these are the conjugations of haber. This is just haber in the imperfect. Había, habías, había, habíamos, habíais, habían. And then again, AR verbs are going to take ado, and IR verbs are going to take edo. Same thing with the diphthong. If there is a vowel before the edo, it's going to get an accent. And you have the exact same irregular participles. So it makes this tense very, very similar to the present perfect. The only thing that's different is the conjugations of haber. Then we move on to pronombres, so pronouns. So in Spanish, there are 3 different types of pronouns. There are reflexive pronouns, There are direct object pronouns and there are indirect object pronouns. They are all the same. The only thing that is different is the third person. So this is different and this is different. Other than that, you can see they all take me, te, nos, and os. So really you just have to remember the third person singular and the third person plural. So reflexive pronouns are pronouns that we use for things that we do to ourselves. That would be a verb, like if you saw something like lavar se, the se on the end of it would make it a reflexive pronoun, and those are the pronouns that the se can change to, me, te, se, no, so, se. Direct and indirect object pronouns get a little bit trickier because it's a little bit hard to determine which one is a direct and which one is an indirect. So a direct object pronoun is the who or the what. So for example, if I say I drank Gatorade, who or what did I drink? Gatorade is what I drank, so that would be the direct object. We saw Natalia at the mall. Who or what did we see? Natalia, so she would be our direct object. Versus indirect objects, the key word you're listening to is to or for whom or what. Usually if you're using an indirect object, there will be a direct object somewhere in the sentence. So if I said, I gave the Gatorade to Pablo, to or for whom did I give the Gatorade? And then the to or for would be Pablo, so that would be my indirect object. We showed them the story. To or for whom did we show the story? And we showed it to them, so them would be the indirect object. So we just have to be careful about deciding when they're direct or indirect. And obviously lo would be for masculine singular or people or things, and la would be for masculine or feminine singular people or things. And then lo's for masculine plural and la's for feminine plural, so you have to make sure you match those. And then the lay and lace doesn't change depending on the gender. So generally, when you place the pronouns, they go before conjugated verbs. So if you look right here, yo lo compro, they put the lo before, and then yo le compro, they put the le before. So generally with conjugated verbs, they go before. Where it gets a little bit trickier is when you're using indirect and direct object pronouns together. So again, here you have your direct object pronouns, here you have your indirect object pronouns. One of the things you need to remember is right here. Oops. Indirect is always going to go first. So when you're ordering these, indirect will always be before the direct. So in a sentence, oops, let me move this down. In the sentence right here, Marcos nos trajo la comida a nosotros. Marco brought the food to us. Who or what did he bring? The food, so that's our direct object. To whom or for whom? To us, so that's our indirect object. So because we have an indirect object, we must have an indirect object. That's where I get this nos. This a nosotros is not necessarily needed. You can kind of cross that out. They're just putting it there to show you, but you don't necessarily need that because the nos is obviously to nosotros. In the second sentence right here, they replace la comida with la, and then they put them together. So you have nos as your indirect object pronoun and la as your direct object pronoun, and that is the order. So Marco nos la trajo is Marco brought it to us. When you're doing these, a trick is to kind of read them backwards. So like Marcos brought it to us. It kind of reads backwards a little bit. And then they show you right here the different placement of pronouns, and it can get a little bit confusing. Here is the first placement of pronouns. It's a conjugated verb, so they go before. In number 2, you can see you have a star plus ando or iendo, so that's the progressive. And with the progressive, you have 2 different choices. You can put them attached to the ando, so you can see they attach it to the ando here. You can also put it before the está. Before the conjugated verb or attached to the ando or iendo. In the third example here, this is a command. So positive commands we attach. Negative commands we put before. So pronouns would go before in a negative command, and in a positive command they get attached. And then finally, in the fourth example, you have 2 verbs. You have quiero and decir, so it's a conjugated verb and an infinitive. And because you have two different verbs, you have two different choices. You can either put it attached to the infinitive like they did here, or you could have put it before the quiero, before the conjugated verb. So if there's two verbs, usually there's two choices of where you can put the pronoun. So those are just the 4 different pronoun placements. And then the last thing that you need to know is right here. It is when you have the double L. So they don't like to have lay low, lay la, lay los, lay las, any of that. They also don't like to have the lace low, lace la, any of that. So anytime you have this double L, they're going to change the first lay or lace to say. So right here, le digo el cuento a Maria. So they're replacing el cuento with lo, and then they don't want to have le lo digo, so they replace the le with a say. So anytime you have this double L, the le or the lace is going to change to a say. And then they're just showing you with negatives that you put the pronouns before the no and the verb. So, and nunca would be a negative, so you would still put the pronouns directly before the verb because this is just a present tense conjugation. So hopefully you've learned all this in the past and it's a quick refresher. They jump into verbs like gustar in this chapter because verbs like gustar take indirect object pronouns. So these are all indirect object pronouns. So verbs like gustar take indirect object pronouns. The thing with verbs like gustar is they only ever conjugate in third person singular or third person plural. So they conjugate in third person singular when you have an infinitive, so right there an infinitive, or if there is a singular object after the gusta. It will only be plural, a verb like gustar will only be plural if the thing following the verb like gustar is plural. So the only time it will ever be plural is if what's following the gusta is plural. You must have one of these pronouns, me, te, le, nosos, les. These clarifiers are optional. If you say me gusta, I know it's a me because there's nothing else it would be to. But you could say a mí me gusta. The a mí is just clarifying the me, but it's not necessary. So if you follow this structure, every time you use a verb like gustar, you will be correct. So just keep in mind, verbs like gustar are a separate type of verb, and they don't conjugate like yo, tu, ella, usted. You don't say yo gusto. You would say me gusta or me gustan, depending on what is following the verb like gustar. And then these are just a list. This is just a list of verbs that commonly conjugate like gustar. Again, you would have like me importa, me pasa, me sirve, anything like that. You're not going to conjugate these verbs in anything other than the third person singular or the third person plural, and you would have a me te le, nos os les in front of them. If I was going over anything that you have questions about, please make sure to ask me in class, and I'll be happy to clarify any of the grammar from this capítulo. Gracias. Adios.